Sometimes in our work we might come across a situation where we have layers on top of layers of clothing, and even though we might have made everything properly, meaning that we started from the base layer and then we build it everything on top of that, the cases change, and sometimes we change the garments quite a bit, and the end result is something like this when we have quite a bit of a mess happening. And the easiest way that I found to fix this kind of situation is to use the deactivation feature, and this one in particular that deactivates everything, pattern and the sewing. You can think about this feature as a way to smooth out and refresh your garments. This case shouldn't be considered as the only case where this feature is useful. If you have a jacket and there's a vest on top of the jacket, there might be some simulation issues where the vest collides with the sleeves, and there might be some bulging, some folding going on that we don't necessarily want. So in those cases, this feature works really well. We simply select either the vest or the sleeves and we deactivate them, and we let the garments freshen up and smooth out. But I'm going to demonstrate it on this example where we have almost five layers of clothing. So to begin, I will simply deactivate everything except for this piece. This is going to be the second layer. This is the first, and this is the second. So right click, deactivate pattern and sewing. And before I actually do that, let me show you what happens if we start simulation the way everything is right now. And keep in mind that for this method to work, everything has to be on the appropriate layer. So in this case, this is this piece is layer 0, this is layer 1, this is layer 2, and so on. So if I press space, we're going to have a mess, and the simulation will probably in the end will end up having worked out this problem, because it's not exactly a very complicated piece. It's very easy for program to understand what is what. It's almost like a tube on top of a tube. But nonetheless, I'm going to demonstrate how I use this feature and why I think it's a very valuable one to the toolkit. So I will select those garments, deactivate them, Shift Q. This hides the garments, and now when I press the space to simulate, only those two pieces are going to interact. So this piece is going to try go on top of this one, which it should, because it's on layer 3, while this one is on layer 1. So this one is done. Shift W to bring everything back to the UI. I'm going to select those two pieces, click activate, press space. I'm going to hide those so we can see more easily what is happening. So this one is done. Shift W, hide, activate, space. Shift W, right click, activate. And the hotkey for this feature is Control J. So you don't need to go into this menu every time you want to deactivate or activate something. It's simply Control J. And that's it. That's one way to use the deactivate garments, deactivate patterns and sewing feature. I would like to talk about thickness as another way of solving some issues when a model has a lot of garments lying on top of each other. And in particular, I'm talking about the thickness collision, the collision thickness. By default, it's set to 2.5 millimeters. And the way to use this in a situation like this is to basically increase the collision quite drastically. Let me illustrate. I'm going to leave those pieces frozen as they are. I'm going to select those. I'm going to deactivate them, hide them. And let's say I want to make this garment line on top of everything else. So one way that I showed was to simply deactivate some patterns and then simulate and wait for the simulation to end. But we can use collision in instances like this. So I'm going to increase this to, let's say, 15. And the way that collision works is that the garments, they don't just separate from other garments. The collision thickness works on any surface. That means that even the same garment can have collision within itself. So if, for example, the skirt was folded on itself, the collision will still work. It doesn't require a separate fabric underneath or over it for this collision to work. We set it to 15, and let's unfreeze this and run simulation. As you can see, there's a slight change in offset, but 15 was not enough. So let's make it something extreme. Let's make it 50. And now the difference taking place. There's still some issues in here because everything that was underneath this garment and was inside of the avatar couldn't simply keep up with such a drastic change in the volume of the garment. But that's kind of the first step. As you can see behind, in the back, everything falls into place rather quickly because the avatar wasn't in the way of the garment. And if we look from the bottom, there's a lot of space between those garments, and it happened almost instantaneously. And to fix this issue, we're going to bring the collision back and let the simulation patch some of those things.
If you enjoy this content or find it useful, please consider supporting me by buying me a cup of coffee via the link in the description.
Again, I want to stress out that the reason for this kind of situation happening here is not because of the garments, it's not because of any thickness, it's simply because the avatar was lying on top of this garment. So no matter what method we would have chosen, this would have happened anyway. So the easiest way is, in this case, it would be to simply move it out of the way and simulate. But let's take the next layer as a better example. I'm going to unhide everything, hide those two. I'm going to activate those, and you can see they are those pieces. They are under the garment. So I'm going to go to my collision thickness, increase it to 50, hit simulate, actually revert back. I'm going to freeze this piece so it doesn't stick to this garment, hit simulate, and pretty much everywhere the garment is immediately on top of the other one. Bring it back and let the simulation finish the process. Again, the same issue with the avatar, not the garments. And the last piece, activate, 50, simulate, bring it back, and simulate again. And the last case to talk about is fairly hard to reproduce, but the idea here is that sometimes we might end up in a situation where we want to fold something, a piece of clothing. In this case, this is the bottom of this garment, and the situation is such that we either cannot or we for some reason do not want to separate this bottom piece to have the simulation do a much faster and better job. And what I mean by that, if we separate those pieces, this piece that I'm struggling here, and we cut it off and we assign different layers to this strap and the main garment, the situation and the simulation would have happened, would have resolved much faster. Basically, there would be a clear indication for the program, a guide to follow when there is layer 1 or layer 0 and there's layer 1, so things will just fall in the right places. But if we cannot separate and we are struggling with this kind of situation where we simply want the fabric to fold and we want it to be sewn to itself, the collision thickness again comes into play. And the idea here is to make this piece, this bottom piece, to look like a tube. And as I mentioned before, the collision works not just between the garments. It works on everything. It works on within one garment. And so if we add thickness, and in this case I've also added a little bit of pressure to the garment, the idea here and what I wanted to do was to make the bottom look like a tube. I wanted to give some space in between the garments, in between this one garment, in between the surfaces, the negative and the positive surfaces. This way there is space for program to run the simulation more efficiently. And I'm basically reverting everything back. I'm detaching the sewing, so the fabric can unfold a little bit better. And also one thing to mention here is that I have a internal line set as a fold. It's a place where a fold happens, and I set folding to 0 degrees and folding strength all the way to 100. So if I sew it back together and run simulation, I have thickness set to 10. So most of this garment, most of this area is already fine, and just a few pieces that I'm trying to fix. And the thing about this thickness, the collision thickness, is that sometimes those issues get resolved when we actually get it all the way back to 2 or 1 and make the garment flat. So that kind of fixes the issue as well. So yeah, it's something to experiment with, to set the collision to 10, 15, let the simulation run for a few seconds, and then bring it back to 1 and see what happens. Because in this case, this is exactly what happened. As you can see, everything is nice and clean. And the second piece, this one, is going to be a better illustration of how this method works. So I'm setting the collision thickness to 10. I'm trying to make a little tube at the bottom of the piece, and it didn't exactly work out. So I'm detaching the sewing. I'm letting the garment relax just a little bit. And now if I sew it back together, because I have the collision set to 10, look what happens. The bottom looks like a tube, and it worked just perfectly, precisely because there's space between the surface.